Welcome back to the deep dive. We're sifting through the noise again for you. Today we're jumping into a term you've probably heard buzzing around more and more. AI slop.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those phrases that's kind of loaded. People use it for digital content that feels, well, low effort, maybe mass produced. Stuff that just lacks, I don't know, quality, originality, that human spark.
Exactly. Yeah, AI slop, it's definitely not a neutral description, is it? It's pejorative, for sure.
Yeah.
It makes you think of something messy, cheap, like animal feed almost.
Yeah.
Something you just consume without thinking.
Right? Unrefined.
Yeah, unrefined. So our goal today in this deep dive is really to unpack that. What is AI slop, really? Where are you bumping into it most often, and why does it have such a negative vibe? But crucially, we also need to talk about the line between that, the slop, and, thoughtful AI-assisted creation, because they're not the same thing. We've even got a real-world example later to sort of clarify things.
Okay, good. So beyond the obvious stuff like, pictures with 6 fingers on one hand, where are you seeing this AI slop popping up most? Or maybe where's it sneakier? Like what forms does it take across different kinds of media?
That's a really good question, because it is kind of everywhere now.
Yeah.
If we talk about art and images, yeah, it's those visuals, the weird hands, the distorted bodies,
Hmm.
or images that just look super generic, maybe overly polished in that weird AI way, and clearly just like pumped out without much care or editing. Those endless streams of images you see.
Yeah, scrolls and scrolls, but it's got to be more than just pictures, right? What about like writing? I bet that's a huge area for this low effort stuff.
Absolutely massive. With writing and copy, AI slop looks like text that's just bland, repetitive, super formulaic. It often feels emotionally flat, inauthentic, sometimes stuffed with cliches, and maybe more concerning, sometimes it's basically just slightly reworded plagiarism. And then there's music. You get these AI tracks that technically sounds like music, but they lack, I don't know, structure, soul, any real dynamic flow. They might try to mimic a genre, but something always feels a bit off. And they're clearly just being churned out super fast with no real artistic point.
Yeah, it sounds like it's all about hitting metrics, not making something meaningful, which I guess leads us straight into things like video and those content farms, especially on YouTube or TikTok.
Oh, definitely. Those AI-narrated listicles, top 10 whatevers, the ones, or those videos that are just stock footage stitched together with a robotic voiceover.
Yeah, the robot voice.
And just pure clickbait content. No depth, no originality. It's all just engineered for the algorithm.
Engineered for the algorithm. That sums it up.
It really does. And that's why the slot metaphor works so well, I think. It captures that lack of care, that lack of respect, maybe, from the creator. It suggests something messy, cheap, something you just consume passively.
But the critique here, when people say AI slop, it feels bigger than just, oh, that image looks weird, or this article's boring. Does it? Like, what's the underlying criticism? It seems like people are reacting to something more fundamental.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, because the term itself, AI slop, it does carry this deeper critique about where digital creation might be heading. It's fundamentally about prioritizing quantity over quality, isn't it? About potentially eroding creative standards across the board.
Okay.
It touches on, the dehumanization of art and maybe even labor, when automation just takes over without real human guidance. This over-reliance on the tech without someone steering it, without a vision. It's like a race to the bottom, content.
Race to the bottom. Wow, that's a strong way to put it. But okay, let's balance this, because obviously not all AI stuff is slop. We've seen some amazing artists, creators using AI in really cool, innovative ways. So how do we draw that line? How do we tell the difference between AI as a helpful tool versus AI just replacing the human?
Right, and that's super important to stress. AI can be an incredible tool, no question. You see creators using it to brainstorm, to kickstart ideas, or maybe enhance stuff they've already made or refine concepts, or even just to speed things up, make things more accessible. That's huge for a lot of people.
Sure.
The real difference, I think, often boils down to a few things. Intent, effort, and crucially, editing. Is the human creator actively guiding it? Are they applying their own vision, their own standards? Are they doing quality control? Or are they literally just hitting generate and then upload? That's kind of the heart of it.
That makes a lot of sense. It's the human touch, the curation, that makes it more than just raw outputting. Okay, so to make this really concrete for everyone listening, let's maybe dive into some common examples, like the stuff you're likely seeing every day online that probably fits the slop label, What are some of the big offenders?
Okay, yeah, let's list some. A classic one is those top 10 list channels that use AI narration. You know them instantly. That robotic text-to-speech voice. Footage that's clearly just generic stock clips or maybe public domain images stitched together. Scripts that feel kind of thin, maybe even recycled. Yeah. And the thumbnails are usually pure clickbait, right? Weird proportions, exaggerated stuff just designed to make you click.
Oh, yeah, those are everywhere. And then you get the slightly more worrying ones, like the fake news or breaking updates channels.
Ugh, yeah, those can be nasty. Often using AI-written scripts just filled with speculation, maybe no real sources cited. They'll have these AI-generated thumbnails, super dramatic titles, and the whole goal is just to exploit whatever's trending algorithmically, get clicks, often zero editorial oversight.
Scary stuff. It's just weaponizing algorithms, really.
Pretty much. Another common type is those AI art compilation videos, like what if historical figures were cats or whatever.
Yeah.
You just get hundreds of images flashed on screen, generated super fast, no real curation, no commentary, often uploaded like daily, just a fire hose of AI output.
Right, just quantity. And this next one worries me, especially as a parent of the low-quality kids story or animation channels.
Oh, definitely a concern. The educational value can be really dubious. They use AI-generated characters, AI voices, and sometimes, if the filters aren't good, you can get weird, maybe even disturbing imagery slipping through, or potential copyright issues. It's like outsourcing imagination without a safety check.
Yeah, unsettling. What else?
Then you have channels covering, say, philosophy or psychology or self-help, but using AI voiceovers. The content often feels really dry, just like an AI summarizing a Wikipedia page. No real depth, no unique analysis, just aggregation.
Personal.
Totally. And finally, a big one is the AI faceless entrepreneur channel. Classic Slop template, AI script, AI narration, generic stock V-roll footage, super low-effort visuals. And usually it's all just a funnel, right? A thinly veiled pitch for some online course or an affiliate link or drop shipping thing.
Okay, so that paints a pretty clear picture. If you, the listener, are scrolling through YouTube or wherever, what are some quick red flags? How can you spot potential AI slop? Like, what should make your spidey senses tingle?
Good question. Look for no real personality or consistent voice across the videos. That's a big giveaway. Also, check the comments if they're turned off entirely, or just filled with bots saying generic stuff like, great video. Red flag.
Yikes.
A really massive video output is suspicious, like 5, 10, sometimes more videos per day.
Yeah.
Humans usually can't sustain that quality-wise.
No kidding.
Titles that feel super formulaic or just stuffed with keywords for SEO, and thumbnails that heavily rely on those typical AI-generated faces, maybe weird glowing eyes, or just a jumble of words, word salad.
Yeah.
If you see a bunch of those signs together, yeah, you're probably looking at slop.
This brings up a really important point, though. What's the actual harm here? Is this stuff just annoying digital clutter, or does it have a deeper, more negative impact?
It's definitely more than just annoying, though it is that too. We can kind of think about the impact on a scale. At the low severity end, yeah, it's basically nuisance level. Digital pollution, discovery fatigue, makes it harder to find the good stuff, the original content. Think about those endless top 10 videos just clogging up search results.
Okay, so that's the annoying level. But it can get worse, can it, when it starts being misleading?
It definitely can. At medium severity, we're talking about misleading or just super low-effort content that contributes to, like, intellectual decay or spreads misinformation, devalues actual expertise, channels that pass off shallow chatbot summaries as deep knowledge. People might actually take that shallow or incorrect info seriously if they don't know where it came from.
Right, it lowers the bar for information quality. And then the highest level, that sounds like where it gets genuinely harmful.
Yeah, at the high severity end, it becomes exploitative or actively harmful. Stuff that could lead to societal manipulation, erosion of trust. Think about AI-generated news designed to push a specific political agenda, or deepfake videos used maliciously, or maybe even that kids' content we mentioned that bypasses safety filters. That stuff can undermine trust, harm vulnerable people, very real-world consequences.
So, thinking about the big picture then, even if most individual slop channels aren't, like, inherently dangerous on their own, what's the cumulative effect? If the whole online space gets flooded with this stuff, it sounds corrosive, like weeds taking over a garden. What happens if platforms can't or don't separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak?
That's a great analogy, the weeds, because the cumulative effect is corrosive. You can almost think of AI slop like fast food for our brains. One channel, one video, maybe tolerable, annoying. But thousands, hundreds of thousands of these channels pumping out low-grade content, that's like cultural diabetes for our information diet.
Cultural diabetes. I like that. Grim but descriptive.
It is grim. And without some kind of regulation, or at least much better awareness from users and platforms, yeah, these online spaces risk becoming just vast content landfills. Makes it nearly impossible to find anything genuinely nourishing or original. It dilutes the good stuff, it trains audiences to accept lower quality, it kills the incentive for people putting in real effort, it trivializes complex topics, and honestly, it just makes moderating these platforms incredibly difficult.
Okay, but maybe you're listening right now and thinking, hang on, I use AI in my channel or my creative work, and I'm definitely not trying to make slop. But how can I be sure people don't see it that way?
Mm. And that's a fair question, right? That self-awareness is probably a big part of what separates thoughtful creation from actual slop. We can actually use a framework to evaluate this. And to really illustrate the difference, let's look at a really interesting real-world case, a channel called Max of All Trades.
Ah, yes, max of all trades. Now, on the surface, the sheer amount of content might initially make you think content farm, maybe raise a red flag. But when you look closer, what immediately stands out is the very specific purpose behind it and the level of human curation involved, even with the AI elements. How does that actually show up in the content?
Yeah, Max of All Trades is fascinating because the intent is clearly spelled out and it's deeply personal. It's not about gaming algorithms or chasing views. The creator describes it as like breaking their internal world with the external, archiving a self almost for personal reflection, friends, family, maybe their future self.
Okay, so not monetization driven.
Not at all, according to the creator. And while, yes, it uses AI for images, for music, it's consistently guided by research, guided by this really interesting framework the creator uses involving subpersonalities. Think of it less like random AI outputs and more like exploring different facets of thought or different perspectives on a topic intentionally. There's clearly a lot of back and forth conversations with AI tools to really fine-tune things, give it a personal angle. That points to a strong editorial presence.
So it's a dialogue with the AI, not just dictation to the AI, shaping a human vision. And you mentioned this personal twist and subpersonalities. How does that affect the channel's voice? Because like we said, AI stuff can often sound so generic, so flat.
That's actually one of the most unique things about it. The voice is intentionally varied. It's almost like listening to different facets of one person's mind, exploring different ideas. This subpersonality thing isn't just random. It seems like a deliberate structural choice. Plus, they use this system of MOAT numbers, which basically act like diary entry codes for each piece. So while the voices shift, there's a kind of paradoxical unity behind it all, a core purpose.
Interesting.
And the content quality itself, while obviously AI-assisted, isn't just spitting out facts. It seems to blend research with, like, interpretive insights. It tackles nuanced perspectives on things. You mentioned the example earlier, a whole music album exploring the provinces and cities of China. That's a deep personal project, not just a superficial listicle. So any visual inconsistencies feel more like an aesthetic choice within that exploration, not like careless, unethical slop.
Right. The human intent and that deliberate curation seem to be the key differentiators here. But, like we touched on, the sheer volume of videos, that could still make it look like slop to someone just stumbling upon it, couldn't it? Why might someone unfamiliar with the whole project jump to that initial, maybe incorrect conclusion?
Yeah, that's the potential pitfall. It probably comes down to a few things. One, just the high volume, the frequency of uploads, without the kind of branding you might expect from a typical channel, can look like farming. Two, maybe the thumbnails or titles, if you get the system, might seem a bit templated or ambiguous at first glance.
Okay.
Three, the complexity of the intent, that whole archiving a self, subpersonalities thing, isn't immediately obvious from just one video. And four, that intentional voice variety we talked about. To a stranger, that could maybe read as a lack of a clear identity rather than the intended multiplicity of identity.
That makes sense. It requires a bit more engagement from the viewer to get it. So for creators out there who are doing thoughtful, personal AI work like this, but worry about being mistaken for slop producers,
Yeah.
what can they do? Are there practical ways to help clarify their value, especially for new viewers?
Yeah, there are definitely some strategies. Simple things can help a lot, like pinning a short video right at the top of their channel page and about this channel video, explaining their mission, how and why they use AI. That's huge.
Good idea.
Creating a Start Here playlist. Handpicking a few pieces that really showcase their unique approach and best represent the project's goals. Maybe even occasionally doing a creator's log style video, showing the behind-the-scenes thinking, the human effort that goes into it. That transparency helps.
Right, showing the work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes just tweaking titles can help, making them a bit more conceptual or descriptive beyond just a code number. Like the example we had, why Gujarat feels like a hidden drumbeat India song, hashtag 27 MOAT 214,
Yeah.
that gives a newcomer much more context than just MOA 214.
Yeah, context is key. So, wrapping up this case study, it feels pretty clear that Max of all trades, despite its high output, isn't really contributing to the AI slop problem. If anything, it's doing the opposite. It's kind of building this really unique public case study on, well, the complexity of self, maybe.
Yeah.
Using AI not just to automate content, but to explore ideas, to facilitate connection in a different way. That feels pretty rare, actually.
It is rare,
Yeah.
incredibly valuable, I think, as an example of a different path.
Yeah.
And maybe that brings us to the final thought for you, the listener. We really encourage you, as you navigate this evolving digital world, to pause and consider the intent behind the AI content you see. Think about the effort involved, the level of human curation. Is this designed just for clicks for the algorithm? Or does it feel like there's a deeper personal purpose, even if AI tools were part of the process?
Yeah, try to look past the surface level.
Exactly. Because the real risk for thoughtful creators using AI in these new ways isn't necessarily that they're producing slop. It's that they might just be misunderstood by people who aren't willing to pause for a second and look a little deeper, something to reflect on.